Good evening and welcome back again to yet another edition of our Nature's Writing for Children webinar series. My name is Shashwat Chaturvedi and I'm part of the communication team at Azim Premji University. We have been doing these very interesting interactions with authors, publishers of children's literature, talking about their process, talking about their books. And today we are very honored and fortunate to have with us Ranjit Lal. He's a prolific author of children's book, and the best part is he's back again to our series. Last time he was here in 2023 talking about his book The Tigers of Taboo Valley, and this time we will be talking about Our Potpourri Planet. So uh, uh, the more I introduce about Ranjit, it's gonna take a long time. Suffice to say that when last time I'd interviewed him, he was around 40 plus books, and now he has crossed a half century in terms of that thing. So you can get an idea of his, the range of his prolific writing. So welcome back, Ranjit. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ranjit, if let's get right into the core of the matter. How did the idea of a non-fiction book, Our Potpourri Planet, come to you? And more importantly, the term, the potpourri, what does it really indicate? It sounds so much interesting, like say a pani puri or something.
Well, firstly, this book was sort of thrust down my throat because
Okay.
HarperCollins wanted me to do this. So they approached my agent, Jaya Rose, and suggested it. She said that they want you to do this book, and I said absolutely no way because I mean it's a very distressing subject. I get three newspapers and I watch all these nature programs, and that's enough to depress you for very good a long period of time. So I don't want to go near it. She said, no, you have to do it, and you just think about it and all that. And so I started thinking about it, and the first thing that struck me was, I mean, I have no sort of formal degrees in anything to do with environment. I did physics and chemistry in school, and unfortunately economics in college, and zero knowledge of anything to do with biology, nothing. But I was always interested in nature and things like that. So the things you keep observing, little things all the time, every day in your everyday life. And so I found that most people were completely oblivious and ignorant of even they didn't even look at things and ask why is this happening, what's happening here. And so then I said okay, and we have a really wonderful planet with all these miraculous things happening, and so much technology we have borrowed from nature. Everything, every gadget, everything that we've invented, nature has been there before, done it, been there, done that. So it is a potpourri planet because it's got so much variety. It's all hodgepodge, and yet it all works as one marvelous system. So that's how I got started on this. And then I said, okay, first let me introduce the reader to all the fantastic things in nature, whether it's plants, animals, birds, insects, especially, and then what we are doing to the world by destroying, by what we've done, and how we can now hopefully try and improve things. So those are the three sort of sections that the book has been divided into.
You know, one of the things like reading your book is almost like watching a Attenborough film or a movie where you kind of realize the majestic nature of our planet, and then you have a very you come down to the human level and talk about how the contrast is happening. So, in your choice of things, because you have included so many of them, how did you arrive at this list of things that you're gonna cover in your book?
The ones that firstly I had some experience with, that I had either interacted with, or like I go birding, so I know a little bit about birds and why they behave and why they don't behave in certain ways. I've been looking at insects a lot, and they are fascinating also. So those are the things that attracted me. And then, of course, there are the outrageous things like the your duck-billed platypus. Now, how the hell did that
Yes.
come about? You know, so things like that. And frogs, they always make you smile. They are grinning away, and yet they can be very poisonous or whatever. So all these things that, I mean, things like tigers and all that, everybody sort of gets interested. But there are lots of other little, a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. It's a
Exactly.
miracle that what happens inside while it's in the pupation stage. It's a miracle. And you look at the life stages. First, it is a total glutton. It is like Americans. Eat, 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 just keep on eating till you can't eat anymore. Then you say, okay, now we have to, atone for our sins. Kuch nahi khao, become a pupa. And then you emerge as a butterfly in a party frock. So look at the miracle that's sort of taken place. And but when you read about what's happening inside it, that's even more ingenious. The way nature the way these hormones and all that are switched on and switched off and all at the right time. The cells are, told when to grow and when not, and when to shut up, when to break down. It's amazing. So these are really fascinating things that, nobody even thinks about.
Indeed, and in fact, I love some of very different things that that you learn from this thing. For instance, I remember that I was surprised by the fact I didn't know. I will admit my ignorance about that. That fruit flies were the first, you know,
In
sentient
space,
species in space.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I anyone to ask me, I would say Laika, and that would be it, right? So, so this your whole book is replete with so many informative things. If you can take us through this whole the research and the how did it go through? It must have been a mammoth task by itself.
yeah. It was, and it was. The problem with the research, especially on the net, is you have to check various sources, and the other problem is the statistics, the numbers. Now, who can say that there are 2,025 spiders in this world? Who has gone and counted them? How have they arrived at that figure? How has that been? They must have extrapolated, whatever it is. But what is the method? And then you will have one batch of statistics saying this, the other batch will say something else, and the third batch will say something. And then you have to see, is there any ulterior motive in their arriving at the particular figures? So you have to think these things out, and you can't get to the truth. So you can only lay the facts down that this is what this person is saying, this is what that person is saying, this is what the third person is saying. Now you've got to choose between them and say, what is what, and figure out. But generally, you do get an idea that there is a trend that is not very sort of healthy for us. Animals going extinct, numbers are coming down. How much by and all that is a different matter, but they are that. So you have to look for these trends and then figure out.
One of the another thing that stood out for me is you almost felt like in with every story that you were taking us through. At some point or the other, there used to be these brackets in which Ranjit Lal would come alive. Things like Toba Toba explosion that you were talking about and
Yeah,
relating it to Taba Taba.
yeah,
Those kind of things. So how how and now this is my fundamental question to you is how hard it is to talk about things about nature, environment change, climate change in a lighter vein, and how important it is or it is not. I leave that to you to be able, because whenever you talk about climate change, it's always very dark, and it's something
exactly.
that
Yeah. But then you don't want to
doom
drown
and gloom.
your reader in depression and that kind of a thing. You have to sort of try and lighten things up. And for example, what the West has done to the rest of the world is appalling. Absolutely, there's no question about that. And it's time they sort of did something about it. And the trouble with us is we are following their example blindly. We are doing exactly to ourselves what they did to us. And so we've got to clear up our house first, clean up our house first, and then say, now think about things. But it's good. I mean, when you have wildfires in Hollywood, it's good. They learn. That's the only way they learn. If their $1 million mansions are burned down, they will learn. It'll bite them eventually. Eventually, it'll bite them.
If I were to ask you, what were some of the surprising interconnections that you saw between that even surprised you as an author, for that instance, if you could pick some of those out?
Well, I wouldn't know about surprising, but what came as a really as a sort of a something actually happened. There's this Yamuna Biodiversity Park, which they have developed very well. DDA and the University of Delhi scientists. DDA just gave them the land and they developed this thing. And it was when I went to see it first in 2002 or whatever, it was like a place where you would test battle tanks, wasteland. What they did, and their project was to make it in an ecosystem that you could find on the river basin of the Yamuna as it, as it flows. So now what to do? So the scientists, what they first found, a lot of saline a lot of the salt was, the soil was very saline. They put in plants which sucked up the salt and threw it out. Then they started planting what they had found on the river basin and all that. And now you can't believe that you're in Delhi when you get into that place. And where what the message came through was, there were the floods in Delhi in 2023, and that place got completely flooded, and Delhi got, there was water outside our gate. And so after the floods had gone and all, I went and saw Fayaz, who's the chief scientist there. I said, "What happened? What did the floods do to you?" He said, "Nothing. The water came 10 feet high. The water went, the grass was there, everything was there. Because it was a flood basin. It sucked up everything, it sponged up everything." And so that showed you that, yes, things can improve and things can be done on the ground. You let these people work, let them do their work, don't interfere, for God's sake. And now they've got plans of building, these embankments and nonsense like that. I mean, what is an embankment? The water will just
The
go over
riverfronts,
the
yeah.
road
The-
and flood into the road. What are you talking about? So you listen to these people and see. He said there are lots of things we tried which didn't work. Take it, tried it, didn't work. Try something else. No problem. So that gives you hope that there are ways out. And then again, all these little people all over those two Balinese sisters in Bali. I've forgotten their names. One was 11 and the other was 12 or 13, and they were disgusted by the amount of plastic bags in Bali. So they
yeah,
started campaigning from door to door. They went, and they slowed it down, but it wouldn't stop. So when they were about 14 and 16, they went on a hunger strike because the government was not listening to them. They went on a hunger strike, and the government had to listen to them and change the law. So there are people like that who do. One person, there's a fellow in Warsaw who cleaned up the beach. He started one man. He had a companion who was 80 years old. They started picking up trash, and they were looked at and laughed at and all that rubbish. But then one by one, people started joining them. Now it's a huge movement. So that gives you the hope that, yeah, once people see what you're doing and they realize why you're doing it, they will join in.
yeah.
So that gives you the little positive.
Positive point as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. So I would also ask you here is, the book has some very fascinating illustrations, Anusha, right? Uh,
yeah, yeah.
how did they come about? How was the
Well,
interaction between the author?
Harper Collins selected her, and she's done a fabulous job. I was really very happy because she caught the tone of the book perfectly. The writing and she matched the tone of the writing perfectly. It couldn't be done better, and it's colorful and it's cheerful also. It's not.
Yeah.
It's really
And I wanted you to expand the importance of illustrations for the author. For what do you feel as an author? What role do they play?
I think sometimes maybe they can make or break, especially in a book like this. If the illustrations were horrible, nobody's going to buy it because first of all, the subject is dire, and then the illustrations are awful. Then you say, what's the point of buying the book? It must be this. The writing must be the same, you know. So, and if the cover of the book is not good, I've had books with covers where I know the illustrator, the artist has not read the book not read one sentence in the book, and uh, and and that it screws up the book. So you get very annoyed. But this girl has done a fabulous job. I was very happy with her.
Yeah. No, I really like the koala bear. That was
Yeah,
beautiful. It's almost
yeah,
like you feel like framing it and putting it up on the wall. It's
yeah,
so gorgeous. So you state in the book that the objective of the book is to amaze, inspire, and preserve.
yeah.
And so, how hopeful you are, or cynical you are about an ability to do so.
I really don't know, because whenever you go to schools to talk to children about writing and reading and writing and all that, their teachers will always say that, oh, our students read a lot. They love books and they're in the library and this, that, and the other. So you said, yeah, very good. That's nice. You go to the bookshops, children's bookshops, where they're selling children's books. नहीं कोई नहीं लेता है. No books. They don't. There's hardly anybody in the. So it's you don't know what is real, what is not. And what schools should do, they probably do, is you take classes to bookshops, to and let the children wander. They can buy what they want, and you know most kids have money these days. Or you ask the teachers that, okay, now we'll do our credit tomorrow, I'll get the money and I want this book. And so that's the way to encourage it. I mean, when we were in school, we had library periods where you spent 45 minutes in the library. You could pick your books or whatever to borrow and whatever it is, but you were surrounded by books.
And finally, I need to get your views on one of the species that is there in your book. I think so. You should really talk about them. Is your general opinion of the Homo sapiens per se? For instance, while I get bits of it from various chapters. I remember one of the places where you talk about the rats, and you say that the rats are like us, canny, cunning, and vicious. I sometimes think that if the rats could file a libel against you, they would, right?
They probably should actually, I think, because we are probably worse than they are, because they only go ballistic when there are too many of them. You put 50 rats in a little box, they're going to fight each other to the death. Same thing with us. But with us, even if two people are there, they will fight each other. That is the problem. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But they have found lots of similarities, I think, between the way rats go about thinking and all that, and we do. There are some sort of commonalities. So we are quite close to them. I think in New York City, they're doing very well because everybody's throwing garbage around, and so they're thriving over there. They have a problem, and I think when it's winter time, then they go and have babies. So it's it's really they are a lot like us, in fact.
Finally, a book like this, there's also always the danger of that it will get dated with say a passage of your books are most of your books are immortal. So did you feel that thing that, okay, when I'm writing this book, that things might come out and you'll have to update
Yes,
it or things?
definitely, because by the time I'd finished writing, so many other things, that catastrophes had taken place, that the ones that I mentioned in the book, people probably would have forgotten about already. That, oh, now there's a new one that has come around, a new wildfire or a new flood or something else, this new catastrophe. So what's he talking about? That's historical. Now it's only of historical interest. So that was a major problem. That was
Correct.
but then how do you can only do research up to a
Deal with
certain
it.
extent. You have to then write the book. You can't keep it pending forever. So
Yeah.
so
How
that's
much
what
time did it take you to wrap this book from start to end?
this was about a year and a half, I think. I'll show you. I think there's a notebook here which is, yeah, this is full of the
Oh my god.
research.
Oh
It's
my
full.
god.
The whole notebook is full from A to Z.
And these
So
are
it's,
handwritten notes.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
So first, I find that if you handwrite your notes or whatever, it sticks in your head more, because it takes an effort for you to write down, and then you remember it easier, and you know then I mark out with a red pen or whatever that this is important, that is important, this can be let go. So that's how I sort of work. And then in the contradictions, you have to sort of say that, okay, check that and recheck that.
That's so interesting. I one more thing. Your fiction books have been phenomenal in that sense. How did you? What do you think about writing non-fiction per se?
Well, if I know the subject, I don't mind writing about it. Like I've done one on I've written one on cars. I'm interested in cars. I may be an environmentalist, but that doesn't mean I can't be interested in cars. So, and I collect these die-cast models, each of which I have some association with. So I've written a book about them, and well, I'm now waiting for a publisher. So let's see. So if I'm interested in the subject, yes. Otherwise, the other interesting thing that generally happens is that you get interested in the subject. While you're researching it, you suddenly find, oh, I didn't know this. Oh, and this leads to this, and this leads to this. And then it becomes, and then you get drawn in. It's like a sort of magnetic force or something like that that just, sucks you into the subject.
Yeah. Now, Ranjit, we have been doing this thing, the nature writing course, the nature writing webinars, and everything. Over the years, how have you seen this consciousness of nature books for children growing, and what do you think is that needs to be done to promote this? As you said, one of the options was library period per se, and
Yeah.
there has also been a lot of talk about in our national education policy and the importance of nature books in our curriculum for that matter. But
Yeah.
what according to you needs to be done more, to
I
promote
think
these kind of.
I think the only thing that you can really do is you take children out into the wild, into nature, as much as possible, and let them imbibe, let them ask questions, let them observe. Because, even with this book, I found that, I'm finger wagging all the time, that this has happened and that has happened. And you don't like doing that to children because they don't like it. So it's better just to take them out and show them that, look here, look at this caterpillar. What you know what's going to happen to it? Let's wait and see and stuff like that. Once that happens, then it's an automatic procedure because the child's curiosity will be aroused, and then they will find out on their own, or they'll Google it or whatever it is. And but this is one of the things I was worried about with this book, finger wagging all the time, and I hate that. That these look is what will happen in this. So, and that's the problem with curriculum and all that, because once environment and if I mean, just imagine if bird watching became a subject that you have to sit and write an exam on, it would rule. It would ruin it. It would completely shoot it down. So that's the. But you go and show them birds, and you show that, look, this is why this bird is doing this. Do you know why birds sing? Do you know what's happening over behind the scenes? So, and it's fascinating when you come out with the little facts. I just read there was a BBC clip about peacocks. I've written about them. There's some the males when they dance, they attract the females and all that, and after they've had their honeymoon, they utter this little squeak of
Okay.
triumph. And when they do that, all the other hens come running because they know that, here's a stud. He's a good guy. We can go with him. Now, there are some unfortunate males cannot attract these hens like that. So what they will do is they will just squeak, and all these females will come running to them, and and he's that happy. So he's using this thing as a trick to call them in without maybe having the goods or whatever they really want. So all these things you check out and you learn, and it's fascinating. They're like us. It's so much like us, scamming each other and all that.
No, yeah. And I remember that short story you had written about that bird. I forgot that one. Shows that bird. The advocate that's singing from different branches,
Mappa
mimic.
Robin, yeah, yeah,
I'm
he's
at my Robin. Yes, that story.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
He's at it. I remember I went back to Goa this season. He was doing it again. Same stunt. Right.
yeah, yeah. Now, if now finally, my final question to you is, what will be your tips for writers who want to write books on nature for children? What is it that your advice to them would be?
First, go out to parks and sanctuaries and things like that. Observe stuff. Write about what you have observed and what you felt at the time and all that, and try to avoid the usual cliches. Because people have written so much about nature and the wonders of nature and all that. But what did it really do to you? And once that comes through, then you sort of. But I mean, for every birding trip I used to go out. For example, if I went to Stanpur or went to Okla, anywhere, I would come back and make notes that this is what we saw and this was the highlight, and this is what was I enjoyed, and this what this bird was doing that, and why the hell was this behaving like this. So and then over a period of time, you have a lot of material. but you
Right.
have to sit down and write those notes.
But
That
yeah,
is a,
that's what, that's one thing, that your fat notebook of notes, journaling that you're doing. That's very impressive. Right. So is it a disciplined time that you take off, and I will write this time, or is it
no.
so much that I've
If I've been out, then I come home and I write. But otherwise, I write nearly every morning, something or the other. I have this column in Indian Express down in Jungle and once a week. So for that you have to, and that's good because it makes you think. Now, what's the next subject? Because you've done this week's, next week's also done, but what next? It makes you think, and then you're a little more aware, and you sit down and find something and you write about it. So it is a discipline, but it does now. It's become a habit now. I get very fidgety if I have nothing to write.
Okay. So maybe just like you, some people should just take up blogging or something like a regular thing, and just that's the kind of drive
Yeah,
themselves
yeah.
to that thing. So wonderful. So what's next for you, Ranjit? After
I don't
our
know.
podcast?
I really don't know. I'm trying some fiction thing, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So I'll have to rethink that quite considerably. And that's the worst part, when you're stuck, then get, you get frustrated. You say, the harder you think, the harder the wall is. You're hammering your head against a harder wall. The best is just let it go for a while and then let the ideas come. I get all my ideas at 4 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, because
Okay.
that's when your mind is clear, it's clean, it's quiet. It's so you get your ideas that, yeah, it may not work. That's okay. You've got the idea at least.
Fascinating. So thank you so much, Ranjit, for your time today. It's
Okay.
fascinating any time to talk with you, and I look
Yeah.
forward to quickly catching up with you. I'll post your one of your most the next wonderful book that you will come up
Okay.
with.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.